told you, sometimes the darkness we fear most, it doesn't lurk in shadows. Like, it hides in plain sight,
Mm.
even in the heart of childhood. And that's the unsettling territory we're navigating today. We're diving into the case of Mary Bell, and she was just 11 when she committed murder.
11 years old?
Yeah.
Wow.
We're going all the way back to 1960s England,
Okay.
a seemingly ordinary community, Newcastle upon Tyne. And it was, the brutal death of a young boy that shattered this illusion of safety and innocence they had. So picture this, right? 4-year-old Martin Brown, he's found lifeless in a derelict house. And at first glance, it seemed like a tragic accident, maybe a child venturing where he shouldn't have. And there was an empty pill bottle near his body.
Oh, wow. So
Yeah.
they thought maybe...
It seemed like an open and shut case,
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
things weren't as they appeared.
Oh, okay.
Right, no. The autopsy quickly changed everything. They found out that Martin, he didn't wander into tragedy. He had been strangled.
Oh, my gosh.
And that seemingly insignificant detail, the pill bottle,
Yeah.
a red herring, right.
Yeah.
And then there were these two girls, Mary Bell and Norma Bell, no relation.
Oh, okay.
But they were inexplicably drawn to this case. They were lingering around Martin's home, even visiting his grieving family.
That's really strange.
Yeah, and it gets weirder. It's Mary's reaction. Okay, so she's told that she can't see Martin.
Why?
Because he's dead, right?
Yeah.
And you know what she says.
What does she say?
Oh, I know he's dead, with a smile. I just wanted to see him in his coffin.
Oh, my.
Yeah.
That's chilling.
It makes you wonder, what could possibly be going on in the mind of a child to say something like that?
Right. I mean, it's easy, I think, as adults to kind of explain away strange comments or behaviors from children, right?
Yeah.
Especially when we want to believe in their innocence.
Of course, yeah.
But in this case, I mean, the darkness was already starting to seep through, right? I mean, take, for instance, what happened at a local nursery school.
Yeah.
Shortly after Martin's death, there were notes appearing, and they were referencing Martin's death, even suggesting they knew how he died.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and at the time, they were dismissed as, cruel pranks by kids.
Yeah.
But in retrospect, it's like, come on, that's a little more than a prank, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a little too on the nose, I would say. Like, they were almost as if someone was testing boundaries,
Oh.
seeing, like, how far they could push
Yeah.
and push those limits they did. Because just a few months later, another unimaginable tragedy, the murder of 3-year-old Brian Howe.
Oh, no.
And this time, the crime scene, it was more than just tragic, okay? It was horrifying. Brian was found in this, like, wasteland, this desolate area, and his little body, it was bearing all these marks of violence, cuts. His hair was partially shaved.
Oh, my God.
And the most disturbing part, the letter M was scrawled on his stomach.
Hmm.
Yeah. And it wasn't just the act itself, it was the deliberate cruelty. You know what I mean? It sent chills down everyone's spines. This wasn't just a child lost. This was calculated.
Wow.
This was malice.
It's so scary.
I mean, with a second young life taken so brutally, panic gripped the entire community. The police knew they were dealing with something truly sinister, like a predator unlike any they'd encountered before.
Right, and it's in those moments when everyone's afraid that the lines between, accusation and actual evidence, they can get blurred.
Yeah. And under that cloud of suspicion, all eyes turned to Mary and Norma. But Mary's behavior after Brian died, it got even more disturbing. Witnesses, they remembered her drawing these eerie pictures, and they seemed to, like, depict the murders. Others thought they overheard her bragging about killing Martin. But at the time, nobody took her seriously. I mean, how could they?
She was a kid.
She was just a child.
It's sad, but kids, especially the ones who have experienced trauma, they express their distress in ways that adults, I don't know, we just don't always get it. You see it in these cases, these disturbing drawings or the crazy claims, and we dismiss it as attention-seeking or just, like a kid's imagination.
Yeah.
But what if those behaviors are actually like cries for help?
Yeah.
Signals that something is really wrong, but we just don't see it.
Until it's too late.
Exactly.
It's a haunting thought for sure, to think that somebody could be screaming for help and we don't even recognize it. But for Mary, it wasn't just her behavior. There was physical evidence.
Right.
Cold, hard facts that pointed at the girls.
And this is where the science of the investigation, it's so important, right? I mean, it wasn't just suspicion or rumors at this point. This was like meticulous forensic evidence.
Yeah.
So get this, fiber analysis. They found distinct gray fibers on both Martin and Brian's clothing.
Oh, wow.
And guess what? They matched Mary's wool dress.
Oh my gosh.
Exactly. And if that wasn't enough, they found fibers from Norma's skirt on Brian's shoes. This wasn't a coincidence. This was scientific proof placing the girls at both crime scenes.
Wow. So they had them dead to rights.
Basically.
So facing this mountain of evidence, the police, I mean, they were under pressure to get answers, so they went with that controversial tactic, good cop, bad cop.
Oh, yeah.
They were hoping that the pressure would get the girls to talk, and it worked. Norma cracked. She just couldn't take it, the weight of it all, and she pointed the finger at Mary. She said that Mary was the mastermind.
Wow. And what about Mary? How did she react?
So Mary confessed. She gave this chilling account of everything, but it was delivered with no remorse, like, at all. And what really baffled investigators, and what I think still gets to us today, was her motive. Mary said it was, get this, pleasure and excitement. She said she killed Brian for the pleasure of it.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. And that statement, I mean, it sent shockwaves through, well, everywhere. And it cemented her image as, like, this chilling example of pure evil in a child. It's tough, right?
Yeah.
Like, trying to wrap your head around a child who's capable of such calculated cruelty, it boggles the mind. But when you start to dig into Mary's past, you find this really bleak history, just neglect, abuse. It makes you wonder, could this have been prevented if somebody had intervened? What we know about her childhood, it's just awful. Neglect, abuse, and there's even suspicion that she experienced violence from her own mother. So then it makes you think, what kind of impact does something like that even have on a developing mind?
It takes us beyond just a simple true crime story, doesn't it?
Yeah.
It forces us to think about that whole nature versus nurture debate. I mean, could Mary's upbringing, the abuse, could it have actually physically damaged her brain? We know that the frontal lobe, that part of the brain that deals with impulse control and empathy, it's really vulnerable when you're a kid. So is it possible that Mary's capacity for empathy, for even understanding the consequences of her actions, was it already messed up because of what she went through?
That's what's so disturbing about this whole thing. But if we believe that a child's brain can be physically, like, permanently altered by abuse, does that mean they're not responsible for their actions? Where's the line between being a victim and being a perpetrator?
It's the question, right?
Yeah.
It's what makes this case and so many others like it so difficult. And what makes it even more complicated is that Mary, she was already showing violent tendencies even before the murders. Like, there were times when she tried to strangle other kids, even pushed her cousin off a roof.
Oh, my God.
Yeah, and at the time, everybody just brushed it off as kids being kids.
Yeah.
It's just mischief.
Yeah.
But looking back, it's like, how did they miss those warning signs? It's a scary reminder that sometimes those little red flags, they're actually a cry for help.
Totally. And it makes you think about accountability, not just for Mary, but for everyone who missed those signs, the system that should have protected her. Knowing what we know now, could things have been different? It's a question you keep asking yourself. And speaking of questions, how did the justice system, which is made for adults, how did they handle a crime like this? What happened at the trial?
Well, they decided that Mary couldn't be tried as an adult, so she went to court as a child. But the thing is, the legal system, it's not really equipped to deal with the complexities of holding a child responsible, when it comes to these kinds of crimes. In the end, they found her guilty of manslaughter. Basically, they said her responsibility was diminished because of her age and because of all the trauma she went through.
Right.
But that decision, it set off this huge debate. I mean, how do you punish a child for something so awful while also recognizing that they're just a kid?
It really gets to the heart of our justice system, right?
Right.
Trying to balance punishment with the potential for rehabilitation. So what happened to Mary after the trial? Did she stay locked up, or was there a chance for her to have a normal life again?
This is where Mary's story takes another turn. So she escapes from prison in '77, gets a little taste of freedom, but they caught her. However, she's granted full release in 1980. They decided she wasn't a danger to society anymore.
Wow. I bet that caused quite a stir, releasing someone who had killed even if she was a child at the time.
Oh, yeah, people were furious. The thought of rehabilitating someone who had done something so horrific at such a young age, it was terrifying for a lot of people. And to make matters worse, Mary's own mother, Betty, she starts cashing in on the notoriety, selling stories to the press. I mean, where's the line between a mother's love and just taking advantage of your own child?
It's like the more we learn about this case, the more layers there are. It's like this onion of disturbing details. It seems like Mary Bell, no matter how hard she tried, she could never really escape what she had done.
You're right. She tries to disappear, but then in 1998, Kieta Sereny writes this book, Cries Unheard, The Story of Mary Bell. Now, the book does give you a deeper look into Mary's life, what led up to the murders. But of course, it also terrifies everyone all over again. Mary and her daughter, who was born in 1984, they have to go into hiding.
It's like a never-ending cycle.
It is. But finally, in 2003, they're granted lifelong anonymity. To this day, no one knows where they are. It's a reminder that some questions, especially the ones that dig into the darkest parts of humanity, they might not have answers.
The case of Mary Bell, it's a chilling reminder, isn't it? A reminder of how powerful childhood trauma can be and how much we still don't understand about the human mind.
It's a case that keeps you thinking, keeps you up at night. It's a stark reminder that good and evil, they're not things found in fairy tales. They exist in all of us.
And sometimes the scariest monsters are the ones we least expect, the ones hidden in plain sight.